Hey there folks, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and I had a really wonderful holiday away, but whilst I was away, some pretty interesting developments happened in the gaming industry, and that was Modern Warfare. And I say developments, ironically, because I guess, well, Call of Duty isn't exactly renowned for game-changing elements that have broken the industry and blah blah blah. Back in the day, undoubtedly, they were the kings of FPS. They were undisputed and founded, in my opinion, or at least were partly the founders of the online gaming community as we know it today. I think everybody can remember playing the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare and being blown away at the sense of community and the sort of sense of scale that you were finally on this multiplayer platform in the 21st century. And Call of Duty has more or less since then stagnated. I think Black Ops 1, in my opinion, was one of the last good ones they ever produced, and Modern Warfare 2 was one of my favourites as well. And in this video today, I really want to talk about the most recent gameplay reveal for the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare and my excitement behind it. And I think this is probably the first time I've used the phrase excitement in Call of Duty in a very long time as a franchise Battlefield player. So today I decided to fire up the remastered version of Modern Warfare, which I thought was pretty good, but you know, it kind of misses the old feeling that Modern Warfare had purely because it is a remaster on a new generation of platform, and when most games do remasters, they actually change a lot of the things that were broken, and ironically some of the broken things are what make these games pretty great, or at least nostalgically speaking, enjoyable. Now, what is my background here? What is my background of Call of Duty, and why am I excited for the new Modern Warfare? Now, for those of you who don't know me on the channel, or if you're kind of recent, you've probably only ever seen Battlefield. But if you ask more or less any Battlefield YouTuber, you'll actually come to learn that most of them started in Call of Duty. Maybe not recording-wise, but definitely as gamers. I think Westy, especially when I was talking to him, is kind of funny because we both spoke about how Modern Warfare and Black Ops 1 were our beginnings, our roots in video games for the most part. And you'll find typically that most players get kind of bored of the conception of Call of Duty and they decide to move on to Battlefield. And the reason this happens is probably because they're looking for a different challenge, or probably because they're looking for something with a bit more scale, and of course that's how I transitioned from Modern Warfare over into games like Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3. And I've really just been waiting for a heyday of Call of Duty to return, because whilst it hasn't been my favourite game of all time, at least recently speaking, I do like the concept of it. It's a great arena shooter for the most part when it does it well, and it's a very enjoyable experience. And I really do feel as though the golden age of Call of Duty was one of the best ages in general in terms of playing shooter games, because if you wanted to just jump online and do some senseless shit for a while, well, Call of Duty was there for it. And even in certain stages with Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 2, the competitive aspects like League play in the initial Black Ops series was a very strong, enticing reason to play to a more competitive level. And since then, really, the franchise has declined. I'd say they just keep trying to reinvent the wheel when I think they kind of realized with games like Modern Warfare Remastered that it wasn't reinventing the wheel that they needed, they just need to expand on what they'd already accomplished. Now, every year Call of Duty will release a new game, and every year, you don't necessarily have to scrap everything and start all over again. And we're talking about a franchise that's add jetpacks, we're talking about jumping, we're talking about all these crazy movement mechanics that they've decided to chuck into the game. They dabbled around in so many different regions. Call of Duty Ghosts, in my opinion, was a nightmare for things like that, because when they finally did get back to boots to ground, I think they realized that they hadn't done it in so long that they almost didn't understand it, that it almost kind of slipped away from them what the boots to ground Call of Duty was. And finally, we have a brand new game on a brand new engine, and just from the very brief gameplay I've seen, I can safely say I'm actually pretty excited for how this is going to pan out, because I feel as though if you look at the interviews from Infinity Ward talking about things like competitive gameplay, talking about things like microtransactions and season passes, that they're finally realizing that the boots to ground formula combined with a good backend like a ranked mode is going to be fantastic, and it sounds very exciting as it presently stands. But all of the back-end stuff and all of the monetization is something I take with a pinch of salt every time Call of Duty releases, because there's always some kind of kick in the teeth that follows, but hopefully this time we might not see that. But what really excites me is the gameplay. The gameplay for the new Call of Duty is probably the most interesting aspect of the franchise as part of the new engine that's been released for the game. Now, for those of you who don't know, Call of Duty's been running on a really, really old engine. In fact, I'm pretty sure it actually dates back to the late 1990s. That's how old the Call of Duty engine is, and it's had more or less no innovation from that other than graphically for a very, very long time. And I think for the first time here, you're actually seeing a slower, more methodical Call of Duty that has sort of variances closer to things like Rainbow Six, but in a very good way. You know, you're not losing the run and gun Call of Duty experience, but for those who want to play a bit more tactically and a bit more slowly, using things like corner turning, using things like rushing corners and stuff like that with flashbangs and projectiles, I think that's a fantastic route for the franchise to take, and that's exactly why I'm excited for it. Because with games like Rainbow Six Siege, I think the problem with it is that if you're not into the one death kind of style of all of the modes, which forces people to play very conservatively, then for the most part that game won't be for you. But if you're looking for a shooter that's a little bit more slow, but isn't as fast as a game like Battlefield or Call of Duty, you don't really have that anymore. That doesn't actually exist, in my opinion, other than maybe something like Insurgency Sandstorm, which again is like a 1 or 2 bullet kill, which doesn't appeal to a wider audience of gamers, although I'm sure that will be well received when it releases later in the year. So I feel like Call of Duty, the new Modern Warfare, has a very unique opportunity here to fill that gap where people want something a bit more slow and less Call of Duty-y, so to speak, but people still want a Call of Duty style experience to some extent, and I think this is what's most exciting about where this franchise is heading. Now, just in terms of the gameplay that I've seen so far from the 2v2 competitive mode, which is available on YouTube, but naturally for copyright reasons cannot be posted on this channel, it's very slow, it's very methodical, and it's very non-Call of Duty in a lot of ways, but if you watch some of the more professional players play it, you can see that the run and gun style is still there. It's just more about how aggressively you as an individual choose to play that individual situation. And I was really impressed with this 2v2 gunfight mode. I like the fact that it changes class variants every time. There's a new loadout, new things, and that, to me, is a true test of skill of an individual player. Even if they do get bad guns, well, the best of players are still good with bad guns. And I'm quite excited to see that 2v2 gunfight mode. But what I'm most excited for is how visually, audibly, and control-wise what we're seeing is panning out. Because not only is there thing like leaning mechanics, which is completely new to the franchise, but you can also tell just from the visuals that everything is very strong. You know, you've got these really great visuals, especially in terms of sniper scopes and bullet tracers, and the new engine is definitely playing into a hand here. Now, naturally, motion blur should always be turned off, so make sure you do that, but other than that, it's a very great experience, and I'm really liking how it looks so far, and I think you can almost see there is a much more focus on a materialistic boots-to-ground feel. There is a physicalist, rugged feel to the game, and I think that's what's impressed me so far just from looking at it as it presently stands, and I'm quite excited for that aspect of the game. As somebody who was from Call of Duty but moved over to Battlefield, it's always been very difficult for me to find my way back into the game, because every time I pick up a new one, it just feels far too arcadey for me to enjoy it, and whilst I am pretty good at almost all Call of Duties I play, purely because I'm just well trained at first-person shooter games at this point, you know, it always feels to me that these games just lack a substance that the older Modern Warfares and the original Black Ops games had. That rugged feel, that physical feel, the sound of your AK-47 firing off in a really meaty sound, you know, very simplistic things that I feel were lost from the franchise, and I feel like that's coming back now, and especially with things like grenade throw animations. So you actually pull the grenade out and pull the pin, or you pull out the incendiary grenade and light it before you throw it. Just that slowing down of certain aspects of the game can make a massive impact on the meta of the game, but also more importantly will add that kind of gap that I'm talking about here, that very small margin between being ultra fast and unplayable and something that people just won't enjoy, and too slow and more military simulation that people won't enjoy either. You don't have one death, there isn't one death, there's one death mode, so it isn't Siege, it isn't some of these other games where you feel like you've waited 55 years to do effectively nothing. It isn't games like Insurgency where it's too hardcore. There is time to react in this game, and you can tell that just by the shooting. When people get killed in the current one, there's a little bit of time to actually get some action done. And you're seeing things like leaning animations, grenade throw animations, and just stuff that in general to me points towards a better Call of Duty in a better place. And I'm super excited to see where that goes. So folks, that's it from me, TheTacticalBrit. If you'd like to see more Call of Duty Modern Warfare on the channel, please leave a thumbs up and a comment in the description below. Of course, I'll always be a Battlefield guy, but I'm actually really excited for this game, so don't be surprised if you see some more footage on the channel. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video.